think you've already kind of touched on it a little bit, that it's all about building relationships. And so when we're talking about customers, when we're talking about tenants, again, on the one hand, we need to be enforcing the lease, but on the other hand, we want to be able to build communities, especially in those larger buildings. So what is your approach to customer service with tenants?
Yeah, so that to me is a huge one, right? And everything is I feel like right now I'm supposed to just know and have all this knowledge, right? But 12 years in, I'm still learning, right? And that again is half the fun. But is different everywhere. And for one that know your audience, right? So there are communities, right? So we're all different, but just like in my given buildings, right? They all operate a little differently, right? I have three large to me. There's 70 units and 123 units, but one's a 55 plus, one's a section 42, one's in a rural area. So they're very different communities, right? But they do have, some generalizations you can make about each group there. And then how to tie that together. Yeah, that's fun. I mean, I think you brought up the, how do you treat him and all that. And I've been working with some of the new employees, like what's the right word? And sometimes I want to say parental, but it's not. But you want this level of trust between you, but you want rules, right? And that's the biggest part. Like I say, did your parents ever get mad at you because you did something wrong, right? They still do. There were still rules and there were still consequences, right? Like we can treat people well, but there are still consequences, right? So if you don't, I really want us to be really nice to residents more than I feel I've seen out there. But will I evict you if you don't pay rent? Yeah, I have to, right? And it can still be that, right? Just understand it's not because you're and I want to bury you, right? Those are the rules, and we have to abide by rules. So, I try to explain that way.
Let me dig into that a little bit. How do you communicate that? Because sometimes tenants will take things the wrong way, and accuse you of accusing them, but how do you approach that?
Yeah, and it is still complicated, and I feel like people listen to this, and all of a sudden residents reach out. Yeah, but right, because I find myself not always, and I'm like, and it's back to where your training might even be better on that. I'm like, okay, they're not you, they're not processing this the same way as you, but there's two things. One, back in the day when I had a bunch of duplexes, East Side St. Paul, right? We dealt with the normal stuff, right? Where I had all the stories of, $8,000 in damage on every move out, it seems, right? I've had times where, after you pick up all the trash bags that are literally litter the entire apartment, the entire thing, below that was cat feces, right? I'm like, that's the bonus at the end for getting all the garbage out, right? 2 days of pulling out garbage to find out the entire floor is covered in that, right? But as we've changed our buildings, well, so as the sort of the bare tenancy. We don't deal a lot with the outskirts as much anymore, which means I don't know that we had an eviction at all in 2019, right? So it's just naturally less. And then part of me, is that right too, right? Is the bar too high? So I have a lot of internal struggles of the right way to do that and the right way to communicate it as well. So for us, because in a single family, we don't have a good relationship. So they're whole different things, right? I would say almost every single family resident has never met me, probably doesn't know who I am. They sign their lease electronically. They were moved in sometimes with a lockbox, generally with the leasing agent. But if it's on a Saturday and Memorial Day, right, sometimes even their move-in is, here's the lockbox code, right? It's very impersonal, right? So no one's walked them through the lease even. And I think we have this assumption that they read it, right? They have to initial every important part. We all know they haven't, right? So how do we properly explain the rules? I was thinking that just the other day, right? How do we walk through? And I'm thinking things like this, not in this format, but, video walkthroughs, right? So for the ones not there, hi, I'm your property manager. I just want to discuss a few things, right? Just send them a video, right? We communicate over text with a whole lot of residents now. And that is, I would say, one of the biggest differences, because nobody reads emails anymore, right? Email's the new mail. You have so much of it, right? During this conversation, I bet I'll get 80 emails when I look at my phone again, right? That's hard to keep up with. But text, very immediate, right? And no one answers the phone either, right? So we text a lot. So if there is something, we had a building yesterday with a problem, 70 residents we had to notify. I could send them an email. That wouldn't work. We could wait for them to call. That wouldn't work. But we sent a text to them all, and that works. So trying to take what we learned from that, right, of modern ways to communicate. Also knowing that doesn't work everywhere. Texting everyone in my 55 plus building, probably not the way to do it. But there, it is community. The office is in a central area. They just walk down and they know each other. Yeah. My property manager in my 55 plus knows everyone there by name, right? 123 residents. Every time I go there, I'm amazed. Like, they all just hug her as they see her, and they have this great thing. But it's also my strongest building, right? 5-star reviews in everything they do all the time. I'm actually trying to learn, how do you take that and put it in a distributed environment? Mm-hmm. And it's different, but I think we have all these great things like we're doing right now of video, of text. So for a lot of how we do it, I think that's our goal. A lot more of bring information to them in a way they'll do it. And no one reads click-through agreements, and that includes leases. Sure. So my property manager is assuming people know the rules. That's one of the things I'm working on.
Yeah. I'm curious, have you always done leases electronically, or did you used to meet with tenants to go through the lease? Or
I'd say because of my background, right, we brought in technology day one. We were paperless day one. And our very first leases were paper. I love going back to see them. I'm like, thank goodness we never had to go to court, right? This terrible lease you Googled off the internet. Don't do that, right? That's but pretty quickly we went to electronic leases. First DocuSign, right, type stuff, and now it's a workflow in our software. I mean, it's all tracked in a clickable thing through our software. Very good for us, but is it best to make sure the resident knows? But my apartment communities is split. They can sign with an employee there, or they can electronic.
Want to hear more on this topic? Click the link below for the full episode of Maximizing Your Property Value.